Welcome back to the Cap Report. How y'all been? Me personally, I'm out here struggling, man. I left my phone charger at work last week, my fast charger. Someone stole that hoe. I got a second charger, right? Take it to work. I forgot it at work. I'm out here using my PS4 to charge my phone right now. You hate to see it. You really hate to see it. So hopefully y'all don't hear it. You know how the PS4s be humming in the background, and there's something outside being loud too. So I'm actually have to brush off the old Adobe Audition editing skills and actually put some effort into editing this video. Most of the time, I procrastinate and I start so late on the videos that I don't have time to actually like really cleanly edit the audio. It's just, cutting it up and whatnot. But, it's actually kind of funny because I'm late on this video too. We're looking back on UFC 277 and it was a week ago at this point. But, at least this ain't as bad as being late on the predictions and whatnot. But we'll go ahead and get into it. In this video, we're going to go over UFC 277, what happened, and just looking forward for the fighters as well. But yeah, UFC 277 was a pretty solid card. I didn't get to watch it uninterrupted initially. I was at work, so I'm not here doing anything I got to do, but got the phone on the side, got the earbud in. So, I see bits and pieces of what happened, but, it's different when you watch it fully through and see everything. But I've gone back now, rewatched it all, and just wanted to react to it, as I said, a little bit. Recap the fights, react, and then, look forward to what's next for these fighters. And starting up, we're going to go top to bottom, kind of reverse the predictions in terms of how we're going to discuss things. So we'll start off with the main event, Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. And I think it's safe to say Amanda Nunes isn't washed. What a performance she put on. For a fight that was so dominant, I actually thought it was still pretty fun to watch. Nunes won by unanimous decision with scorecards of 50-45, 50-44, and 50-43. I will say 50-43 seems harsh to me. After watching it back, I'd probably score it 50-44 personally. I could see a 10-8 in the second round, but I don't really see any other round fitting of a 10-8 in my opinion. I think Pena had enough damage in the first round for it to be a 10-9, and in the later rounds, I think her submission attempts counted enough as like effective grappling to kind of keep them from being 10-8s. Granted, discussing a 50-43 versus a 50-45 scoreline is really just splitting hairs on a dominant performance, isn't it? Nunes made great adjustments from the first fight with the stand switching and catching Pena with that right hook constantly. She dropped her a few times with it. I thought it was interesting that Pena was okay standing with Nunes despite getting so outclassed in those first two rounds. She kept leaving herself so exposed with the long punches she threw, while she would just march straight forward down the center line, no head movement or anything. It reminds me of something from my notes for the first fight, which I think I actually mentioned in the prediction video. I don't know specifically, but this is a quote from my prediction video notes. In the first round of that first fight, Pena threw some pretty bad winging punches that left her open, and Nunes needs to capitalize on that more. I think if the last version we saw of Amanda was a one-off and she's back to her usual self, she could win this pretty handily. But I think Pena's intangibles will make this a difficult fight no matter what. I honestly feel that that summarizes the fight pretty well. It's quite apparent now that the injuries and the bout with COVID really held Nunes back in that first fight. Once completely recovered from those with 5-round cardio, there really was no cliff for her to fall off of and open the opportunity up to Pena like the first fight. Likewise, with the initial part of the notes, Pena continued to over leverage herself with the striking, and Nunes did capitalize on it a lot more by dropping her a couple times. Pena's toughness shone through by taking all that damage and not getting finished, and she really forced Amanda to see the fight through. Even those later rounds, it kind of looked like maybe Nunes wanted to cruise a little bit to the end by taking her down, but Pena just kept throwing up submissions, and she almost got her a couple times. Pena got really close with some of those submission attempts. The arm bar in the fourth and the Kimura attempt, I think, were both pretty dangerous. The arm bar was like, she had that in, like she might have been able to finish that fight with that one right there. Now, looking forward into what these guys should do next, or what these girls should do next. I'm not really sure who there is to match Amanda up with from here. No one in the top 5 of bantamweight really has like a win streak going. At best, you've got Caitlin Vieira on a 2-fight win streak, but wins with some, and she does have wins with a little bit of name value in Holly Holm and Miesha Tate, but once again, it's only 2 fights. Nunes said that she wants to defend at featherweight again, but there's really nobody there to fight either, really. I mean, the UFC doesn't even have rankings for that division. I really don't, I think it's because they want to cut I think they want to eventually scrap the division once Nunes retires, but they really, I don't know why, since they're still doing the Ultimate Fighter, I don't know why they don't just do an Ultimate Fighter season with women's featherweights if they want, to populate and build that division. I mean, it's what they did with strawweight. I don't get why they just don't do that. Granted, that's a whole side thing. There's the Shevchenko trilogy as well, which could be an option. It's a champion versus champion fight, which would likely be the biggest fight in women's MMA history. That being said, I do feel that Taila Santos deserves a rematch with Shevchenko, even though I think that Shevchenko won that fight. With that being said, the options moving forward are pretty scarce for Nunes. I feel like we could see a trilogy with Pena at some point in the future, but given the way this fight went, I think Pena would need to win a few fights to really set it up, since Nunes was quite dominant in this fight. That being said, I think what should be next for Nunes is the Shevchenko trilogy, but I think that the fight that will be made for her is a defense at featherweight by, maybe they sign somebody. I do think that take the opportunity they can to do it, because that fight would be huge if they do Amanda Nunes versus Shevchenko, that would be a great fight. Say Nunes wins this, right? You could build that into, because Kayla Harrison's not going to come into the UFC for what, probably a year or two. You could use that as a stepping stone to getting to Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes as well. Because I'm just thinking about, like, if you think about the timeline, Kayla Harrison's going to what, fight out this year, this season at PFL, and then she has like a fight or two on their contract with them that aren't season based. It's at the end, and they're trying to get a fight with Bellator. You could build like have a roadmap to like a really huge fight in a couple years for Nunes. Say Harrison wins the PFL this year again. She wins that fight, and then she goes on to fight Chris Cyborg, and she beats Cyborg, and then she signs with the UFC. And then you have, from Nunes' perspective, right? She wins, she's a double champ again. Say she beats Shevchenko in a trilogy, and then she beats Pena in a trilogy, right? She's beaten the best of the best. She's undisputed women's GOAT. You get Kayla Harrison, and that's just a huge fight right there. You know, the girl who's been winning PFL, you know, winning multiple PFL seasons, their tournaments, beat the Bellator champ, comes into the UFC to fight the UFC champ, who's a double champ. I mean, that's maybe, you know, really down the line, but you gotta get a couple fights to get there for her. For Juliana Pena, where do we go from here? I assume you give her someone from the top 5, and initially I thought Holly Holm would be the option here, as she's also coming off of a loss, but based on how Pena got completely outclassed from a striking standpoint, I think that it would be a bad idea to make that fight right now. And, you know, then you take a chance at really like completely tanking Pena's stock. I think that, you know, in winning the title and a lot of the media that she did, she's got probably higher stock than a lot of the female fighters on the roster right now. Caitlin Vieira is likely the number 1 contender in air, you know, we're gonna put number 1 contender in air quotes here. So I don't know if you match her up with Pena. Looking at the other top people in the top 5, Renee Aldana's already matched up. Maybe you do Raquel Pennington. They haven't fought before. Pennington's on a 4-fight win streak, but when you kind of break that win streak down, it's not as good as it looks. 1 win at featherweight, 2 being on the lower end of the top 10, and 1 being an unranked fighter. So you think that Pennington needs a top 5 opponent soon. So I'd say the choices here to match Pena up with are between Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington. Personally, I'd lean towards matching Pena up with Pennington. Now we move on to the co-main event, and in the co-main event at flyweight, Brandon Moreno defeated Kai Kara-France by TKO with about 30 seconds remaining in the 3rd round. Moreno dropped Kai with a liver kick, which I won't lie, when I saw it live, I thought that was a groin kick. He went down, I was like, ain't no way they're not gonna stop it. Like, that looked like it was a bad kick, but, you know, watching the replay, that was like really well placed. The fight really started to pick up in the 3rd round, and it was Kai Kara-France's best round of the fight. I didn't expect Moreno to control most of the pressure in the fight like he did for the majority of the first 2 rounds. I thought he won both of those rounds. Kara-France did a great job of defending the takedowns in those first 2 rounds, and I was really surprised to see him be the first one to land one, you know, sweeping Moreno in the 3rd round. Kara-France did get a little lucky that Moreno didn't land that head kick, because he got close like 3 times with it. It's just crazy how it finished pretty much out of nowhere. Kara-France was starting to take control of the fight, landing the better combinations, getting Moreno out of his flow. He had Moreno chasing the fight somewhat in that 3rd round. The whole final sequence was kind of crazy. Kara-France went for the single leg, Moreno stuffed it. Moreno landed a spinning back fist as Kara-France was getting back up. Moreno pushed forward, landed a left hand, and then threw the left kick to the liver. Kara-France just crumpled from it. Moreno got on top of him and just finished him with strikes. And, you know, a little side point I'd like to mention, it's not that relevant, but it kind of cracks me up that the judges on this fight were in just completely different pages about how they scored this one. One of the judges had it 2018 to Kara-France, one had it 19-19 even, one had it 2018 to Moreno. And watching it back, I don't see how you don't have it 2018 Moreno. Like, I'm pretty sure he won those first two rounds pretty convincingly. But I said, this is just a side point, but it just cracks me up. Like, the scoring is so all over the place for this one. Now moving forward, you know, from this, it's kind of obvious what fights next for Brandon Moreno. The rare 4th fight, quadrilogy with Davis and Figueiredo. They had Figgy enter the cage and everything, but it was kind of cool to see the mutual respect between the two. I like that they gave the chance to go bad blood and Moreno kind of show the kind of man he is. And I don't think you need bad blood to sell this fight. I mean, these guys, like, their styles just match up so well that it's always gonna be a fun fight. You know what I mean? A lot of people say you could match them up 10 times and you're gonna get a thrilling fight every time. But I think it's gonna be weird in the build-up because Figueiredo just seems to like constantly switch between playing like the bad guy and being friendly with Moreno, and it's always just so off-putting. So I imagine he's friendly with Moreno now, and then when he gets back into the camp, he's gonna try to play the bad guy again to sell the fight. For Kai Kara-France is an interesting place to be in, looking at, you know, the top 5 and who you match him up with next. Pantoja's likely next in line for a title shot after Moreno and Figueiredo 4, but likely rule him out. He just beat Askarov, so we kind of rule him out too. You could do the rematch with Brandon Royval if he wanted to get that fight back, but Royval is matched up right now. I would probably go with the other loser from this card. You can match him up with Alex Perez maybe. Granted, maybe it'd be a little unfair to Alex Perez in the matchmaking, but I just don't know really who you give Kai Kara-France right now. You know what I mean? So as I said, I'll go with Alex Perez for now. in terms of who to match him up with. Moving on to the controversial fight of the night in the heavyweight division, Sergey Pavlovich defeated Derek Lewis by first round TKO. And the Texas curse strikes Lewis again. Those guys were swinging from the beginning and Lewis got hurt real fast. That being said, the fight definitely got stopped early, but in the moment, you can see why the ref stopped it. Lewis got dropped, hit the floor, and Pavlovich continued to throw at him as he was down, and it seemed like it was time to stop the fight. But, you know, when you kind of see it from different angles, it could be seen that a lot of those punches thrown at Lewis when he was on the ground were missing, and that he got back up instantly. It was really a bit of a flash knockdown. And in looking at who to match these guys up against moving forward, Pavlovich shot up the rankings to 5th, so there's a lot of options available for him here. Looking up the rankings, Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa already booked. Maybe you give him Curtis Blades. You know, Blades is also coming off kind of a strange win, you know, and Tom Aspinall getting injured. And it would present a new challenge for Pavlovich, you know, with the whole wrestling element to Blades' game. But, I mean, Blades is a lot more of a complete fighter now than he used to be. He's kind of really put the hands together as well. I probably think that Blades would be too much for Pavlovich, but you never know. Alternatively, you could probably give him fellow Russian Alexander Volkov as well. He's a little lower on the rankings, but maybe a little more even. For Derek Lewis, he's fought a lot of the guys above him and below him, just a lot of the guys in the heavyweight division in general. I think you could match him up with another big puncher coming off of a loss in Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Alternatively, you could treat this fight like Magomed Ankalaev and the Ian Cutelaba situation way back. You know, just run it back again right away and just hope it doesn't get canceled 3 times like Ankalaev and Cutelaba did. They spent a whole year trying to remake that fight. Then we move on to the flyweight division once again. Alexandre Pantoja submitted Alex Perez in the first round, and wow, what a wild 90 seconds this fight was. These guys were swinging from the start. It was kind of crazy. You look away for a second and Pantoja had Perez's back standing up. I didn't think that he was going to be able to find a submission from that point, and I don't know if really like technically had the submission in or if it was more of just a crank at that point, but like, hey man, he had the body triangle on it like as he was standing up. It was wild. But yeah, once again, this fight, there's not a lot of crazy analysis for it either. Pantoja, he's just showing he's that guy. I mean, he's so dangerous. I already kind of touched on what will be next for both these guys. As we said, surely Pantoja's set to be next in line for the title shot, but you'd have to wait for Moreno 4. So maybe he doesn't wait that long. I'd say you probably just have him wait. You could have Perez fight, as I said, the other loser from the card in Kai Kara France. That could be a harsh run of fights on him, because if you were to give him that, right, his last fights would be Figueiredo, he lost, Pantoja, he lost, and then Kai Kara France, which he'd probably be an underdog. That's a murder's row right there. Maybe you give Alex Perez like David oh my god, I cannot say this man's name to save my life. I'm looking down the rankings. Maybe you give Alex Perez David Dvorak. That's just my best guess, honestly. Kind of hard for where you match up Perez at this point. I feel like he's going to struggle against a lot of the top 5 right now, just as I said, because it's been so long since he's fought. And then finally we move on to the first fight of the card, Magomed Ankalaev defeating Anthony Smith by second round TKO. And this fight's a weird one to talk about. You know, it looked like it was going to be a really good, you know, chess match in that first round. You could see both guys were going back and forth with a variety of kicks and setting up exchanges, you know, kind of laying traps for each other. Ankalaev was definitely doing the better job of checking the kicks, and he looked to be landing a little more in the exchanges as well. I definitely would have given him that first round, up until Smith suffered an injury in that first round. It was strange because you could tell something was up with Anthony Smith, but it was kind of hard to exactly track where the injury or when the injury occurred. I'm not completely sure what the injury is at this point, actually, because I've seen so many conflicting things about what it is. I've seen people saying it's an ankle injury, and I've seen people saying it was a leg fracture. Maybe it's a blend of the both. You know, that's not really my amazing realm of knowledge. But in the second round, you could really see how it was holding Anthony Smith back. You know, he really pushed up the pressure quite a bit in that second round. He was looking to get that finish. I think he knew he couldn't eventually get finished if he didn't try to find a finish himself. So yeah, in the second round, he got Ankalaev against the cage. He attempted a takedown that got stuffed. I personally thought Smith avoid going to the ground in this fight if he could, but in the context of the injury, it made sense as a move. On the ground, there'd be maybe less effect from the injury, maybe even out the fight a little bit. I think Smith's got a great like BJJ game, so he could hunt for the finish that way. But Ankalaev was pretty much controlled the fight from that point on. He stuffed the takedown. Smith kept looking to pull Ankalaev into his guard, and Ankalaev did a great job of maintaining his posture and kind of just raining down shots until the referee stepped in. I do think the injury kind of robbed us of what could have been a really intriguing fight, but hey, that's the name of the fight game, right? There's people saying to give Magomed Ankalaev a title shot off of this, and I could see that as an option. He's on a huge 9-fight win streak. He's beat 2 top 5 guys, or at least I believe Thiago Santos was in the top 5 when he beat him, so maybe it's only 1 top 5 guy, but I feel like it was kind of 2-ish. So I'd be fine with him if he got the next title shot. I wouldn't be mad. Alternatively, if the UFC decided to run, you know, Yuri versus Glover back, you could do Magomed Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz as a #1 contender fight, you know, slash kind of a title eliminator. I said that weird, title eliminator. The other thing is, out of those 2 options, I do think that maybe it's better to do the Blachowicz versus Ankalaev, just off the fact that the way this fight went for Ankalaev, it wasn't as like, it was very sure in how it ended in terms of straightforward, he got the finish, but like, it was through the means of an injury, and people say it was off of a checked leg kick, but I'm not really sure if it was off a checked leg kick or if it was off Anthony Smith's throwing something. I mean, nonetheless, he won, but I feel like he needs there's better ways to get the title shot, if that makes sense. I can't put into words what I'm thinking here exactly. And for Anthony Smith, I'm not really sure where you go from here. He's gonna be out for a while with, as I said, I think it's a broken ankle or leg fracture. As I said, I'm still not really sure. You know, one option might be maybe he runs it back with Alexander Rakic. That's a fight he wants back, and Rakic was dealt with injury in his last fight, but I think Rakic might be back earlier, so maybe that wouldn't work out timeline-wise. Maybe you give him the Paul Craig fight, or you know who we haven't heard from in a while? What if we did Anthony Smith versus Dominic Reyes? What do y'all think about that as a fight? Dominic Reyes hasn't fought since he got knocked out by Yuri Prochazka, I think, right? Because he was on that rough streak of losses, losing to John Jones and then Jan Blachowicz and then Yuri Prochazka. Anthony Smith, I definitely feel like is a step under those guys in terms of difficulty. And Reyes said he didn't want to fight again until like 2022. Maybe he'll fight early 2023 instead. But I think that's a fight you can make. You know, it's not like Reyes is looking for a fight right now, but he's a little bit down in the rankings. I think he's like 6 or 7. Yeah, 2 experienced guys. Maybe that's a solid fight to make. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we got to say in this video. Let me know. Leave a comment. You know, any thoughts y'all had on the fights, anything I had to say, any matchups you'd want to see coming off of these, anything. Yeah, leave it in the comments. You know, don't forget. You know, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Even though no one's probably watching at this point. If you are, and you know anyone who watches the videos in general, you all know I appreciate it. That being said, this has been the Cap Report. Hopefully, new video coming within 2-3 days, but we'll see. There's been a lot of big fights dropped. I wanted to make a video about 280, but I feel like that news is too old for me to do it now. But there's some 281 news that I'll probably be talking about soon.